with such an
This call is
important.
now being recorded.
It is indeed a pleasure to start with such an important webinar on intellectual property rights. And I would not take much time regarding this because we have the right resource person to talk about what is IPR, its implications, and so on. From what I understand, though there are a number of definitions, intellectual property rights, IPR, refers to the rights, the recognition that is given to the human intellect and creativity of the inventions, the discoveries, the products of an individual, cutting across various categories: scientific, industrial, literary, cultural, and so on. So, regarding the details of various categories of intellectual property rights, its significance, etc., our resource person would be throwing more light on that. Now, secondly, I'm really delighted to have our resource person, Dr. Mahendra Kumar. So I'm doubly elated for the simple reason that he is or he was an alumnus of the new college. Participants, why don't you give a big hand for that? And the second thing is we have or he has a very close bonding with the Department of Zoology. So he was also our student for the vocational biotechnology program, and he had also done diploma in medical laboratory technology from our department. Okay, with these few words, I would like to once again request Dr. Mahendra Kumar, after he is introduced by our organizing secretary, to throw more light on IPR. Thank you, one and all, and welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our organizing secretary of this webinar, Dr. A.K. Sultan Moeddin, sir, to introduce the resource person.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all who are connected virtually. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our young and dynamic resource person for today's webinar, Dr. M. Mahendra Kumar. Dr. Mahendra Kumar is currently serving as Assistant Professor of Biotechnology in Guru Nanak College, Chennai. He is very passionate about teaching and research, guiding both the UG and PG students in academics and research projects. His academic qualification includes MSc and PhD in biotechnology from the University of Madras. In addition, he has obtained diploma in medical laboratory technology from the University of Madras and a PG diploma in intellectual property laws from Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai. His area of research includes biotechnology, ethnopharmacology, and entomotoxicity. He holds several memberships in professional bodies. To name a few, he is a member of the Royal Society of Biology, UK, and a member of the Society for Medicinal and Natural Product Research, Germany. He has served as resource person and chief guest in many webinars and delivered lectures related to intellectual property rights. Besides this, he has also filed 1 international and 3 national patents. Intellectual property rights has gained tremendous significance in the educational sector as they have become part of the academic curriculum. In fact, the main objective is to create awareness and emphasize the importance of IP rights, which recognizes the work of the creator, such as inventors, designs and symbols, etc. In view of this, may I now invite Dr. Mahendra Kumar to deliver a talk on intellectual property rights to throw more light and enlighten the august audience. Please take over the session, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I'm very happy to hear the word sir from my sirs. And as mentioned by Ashraf Sharif sir, I'm an alumni of this great institution, the New College. I did my BSc Plant Biology and Plant Biotechnology with an allied for all 3 years, Vocational Biotechnology from the very esteemed Zoology Department between 2004 and 2007. And I'm very much grateful and I'm indebted to the department for making me what I am today. Thank you so much. So with this, I'll share my screen. Sir, is my screen visible, sir?
It's visible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Once again, I welcome everyone to the webinar on intellectual property rights, IPR. So before going into my topic, I would just give a brief introduction about or a differentiation between what is a discovery, what is an invention, and what is an innovation. So discovery is something which is already existing in nature, but we find it knowingly or unknowingly. So that is a discovery. Whereas an invention is something which we create for our needs. But an innovation is a group of inventions clubbed together in order to suit our changing needs. For example, this telephone was invented to communicate with each other, whereas the smartphone which we are using now is an innovation of the invention telephone, which includes or which has, we can say, which has replaced our camera, our telephone, our reminders, our clock, whatnot. So in order to know more about intellectual property, we need to know what is an innovation. And a property is something which belongs to someone or which is under possession of someone. Whatever we possess, we call them as property. This property is of two types. One is tangible property, another one is intangible property. Tangible property is that which have a physical existence or which we can easily liquidate, but it is depreciable. For example, the cash we have may lose its value 10 years from now, or the furniture, vehicles, building, machinery, etc. There is another type of property that is called the intangible property. This intangible property is an asset that does not have any physical existence. Like the tangible property, you cannot touch or feel them, but they have very good future value. Example, the goodwill of an organization or an institution and the intellectual property. Intellectual property, as I told, is an important intangible property which someone gains or which is created as a result of human intellect in industrial, scientific, literary, or artistic field. This intellectual property has some rights called intellectual property rights, and these rights are exclusive rights granted to the creator or the inventor or the owner for their work that are the result of their intellectual creativity. The IPRs can be used or exploited by the owner for commercial exploitation, subject to the provisions of national laws and international agreements between countries from time to time in force. Why we need to know intellectual property? What are the significance of intellectual property? The intellectual property mainly avoids duplication of research. Once something is patented, it cannot be copied. That much protection is given to the patented products or something which is protected by the IPR laws. And this encourages the creation of many intellectual goods. This also helps the industry to produce better and cheaper products by innovation. This slide gives an overview of the intellectual property. And the major intellectual property is again divided into two. That is industrial property, another one is copyrights. So the artistic and literary works are protected under copyrights. All other IPRs like patents, designs, trademarks, geographical indications are termed as industrial property of the intellectual property. So these are the types of IPRs. That is patents, trademarks, industrial designs, plant varieties, copyrights, geographical indications, layout designs of integrated circuits, and confidential information. Someone could imagine whether one product can hold many IPR or IPRs are that exist individually. No, even a single product can hold itself many IP rights. For example, this telephone or smartphone, what you're seeing in the slide, holds nearly 5 intellectual property rights. That is, the data processing methods, OS, operation of user interface, are protected under patents. The softwares used in the phone, the user manuals, ringtones, startup tones, and the images they use inbuilt are protected under copyright. And there'll be some know-how kept in house and not published, like the Siri or the Alexa. These kind of technical know-how are protected under trade secrets. Then the overall view of the phone, the arrangement and shape of the buttons, the position and shape of the screen are protected under designs. And finally, the brand name and the product name, like Nokia or Nokia or product or Apple iPhone 13. So these names are protected under trademarks. And what are the significance of intellectual properties in economy? We all know China is far bigger in manufacturing. India has more engineers, and there are more resources in Africa. Russia has more natural gas and oil. But still, why USA is richer and a superpower? Because it has more intellectual property than any other country. Every time we buy a mobile phone, we watch movies or search something online, companies in the USA earn money through their intellectual property. And only because of the investments and their strength in intellectual property, USA is still a superpower. So coming to Indian scenario of the intellectual property, the intellectual property in India are governed by the following laws. Copyright Act 1957 deals with the copyright. The Patent Act 1970 deals with the patents. The Trademark Act 1999 deals with the trademarks. And the Geographical Indication Act 1999 deals with geographical indication. So, similarly, the Designs Act 2000 and the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act 2001 governs those respective intellectual property. So coming to the trademark. The trademark is very important intellectual property, right? And these are nothing but the symbols, words legally registered or established by use as representing a company or an institution, which distinguish the goods and services that are provided by the company in the marketplace. For example, the brand names and logos. These trademarks can be used as a marketing tool so that the customers can easily recognize the particular or specific or unique product or services provided by the company. This also gives protection on the basis of first adoption, first user, and first inventor. I'll come to that little later. And the main functions of trademarks are, these trademarks distinguishes significantly the products or services of one enterprise from those of the other. These refer to particular enterprise which offers the products or services on the market. This also promote the marketing and sale of products and the rendering of services. This slide gives few examples of trademark which are known worldwide. So we all know this is the logo of Hyundai, the Hyundai car company. So just by seeing the logo, we'll know, or anyone can easily identify or easily come to a conclusion that this is the logo of the company Hyundai. They manufacture, it's a motor company, they manufacture car, and the cars are of lot of types. Everything we can easily identify. So instead of giving very much detail about the company, the logo will itself, reach out to the customer about the company. So this is the power of trademarks. And this much important trademark shouldn't be protected. If it is not protected, then it can be easily infringed or copied by others. And for that only, we need the registration process. And out of the intellectual property, the trademark and copyright are not necessarily registrable. The others are to be registered mandatorily, but the protection again with respect to trademark and copyrights are the first use or first inventorship. You have to prove, if you have not registered the trademark or copyrights, then you must prove, if you can prove the authorities with relevant documents that you were in possession of the particular trademark or copyrights, then you will be given the ownership. So how to register a trademark? If I'm having a logo, or if I'm an entrepreneur and if I'm having a company, I've registered and I'm running the business, and the business is running very successfully. And now I've got a logo of my company. So I think that my logo is prone to be copied by others. Then I need to protect it through the Trademarks Act. How to do that? So here, as I said earlier, the trademarks in India are governed by the Trademarks Act 1999, and in India, it is registered by the Controller General of Patents, Designs, Trademarks under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of Government of India. So the trademarks are registered under the Trademark Act 1999, and this provides the trademark owner the right to sue for damage when infringement of trademark occurs. And when you register, the validity of the trademark is 10 years from the date of filing, which can be renewed from time to time. So this is the registration process of trademarks. So once you are ready with the trademark for filing, before that we have an option called search. If you feel the logo or the name or the color of your logo might have some similarities with somebody else or with some other registered trademarks, before filing you can cross-check that. So that can be done by paying a minimum fees of 500 rupees to the Office of the Controller General of Patent, Designs, Trademarks with the clause which division you are going to use the logo, like the service, education sector or manufacturing sector. In manufacturing, if it is food. So similarly, after choosing the service area or service sector, you can do a search and you will be given a search report, complete search report by the government. So you can go through the search document, and if you feel your logo is unique, then you can directly go for filing. In case you feel there are already some existing trademarks which are similar to your logo, then you might have to change a little in order to ensure it is approved and not rejected. So once you're done, once you're 100% sure that you can go for filing, you go and file the application with the Registrar of Controller General with the, Patent, Designs and Trademarks. So once you file your application, an application number, a unique application number will be allotted to your application, and the examination report will be issued within 3 months. If there are no objection, okay, once the examination report is issued, it will be published in the Gazette of the Trademarks, and they will ask for objections if any. If there are no objections, then your logo or trademark is confirmed to be accepted for registration. Then it will be again published in the journal, again asked for any opposition. And if there are any opposition with strong evidence, again it will be denied. If there are no opposition, or even if any opposition arises, if you are able to prove your ownership or authenticity, then yours will be accepted finally. In case during the examination report they receive a lot of objections, then you will be asked, as the owner or applicant, you will be asked to reply to the objections, and by giving a show cause hearing. And if you satisfy the show cause hearing during the show cause hearing, if you are able to convince the authorities, it will be accepted for registration, or else it will be refused. And once it is registered, you have to renew it every 10 years in order to keep it protected. Okay, so now you have protected your trademark with a registration, and you have got the trademark certificate. Now someone has copied the logo, or anyone, maybe your competitor or somebody else, wants to steal away your name, the business, they want to steal away the business from you. So they have used a very similar trademark, or they have used the same color. You feel that your trademark has been infringed, then you can, what are all the remedies for that, and what is trademark, we'll see now. The trademark infringement is the act of violation of exclusive rights attaching to a trademark without the authorization of the owner. In case you have got a very big business and you want to give franchising, then the trademark what you have got, the registered trademark which is under your possession, you can give it to others by an authorization letter, maybe for money, or maybe due some agreement between you both, you can give. The third party can use your logo or your registered trademark only with the authorization from you. If he has done that without your authorization, then that is termed as trademark infringement. And this trademark infringement mostly occurs when a person uses a trademark which resembles to the products owned by the other party or the original owner. And this trademark infringement offenses is punishable with either imprisonment for a term of minimum 6 months, but which may get extended to 3 years, and with a minimum fine of rupees 50,000, but again which may extend up to 2 lakhs based upon the seriousness of the infringement and how much damages you have caused to the original owner. Next is the copyright. Copyright is the exclusive right an owner gains for his literary and artistic works such as poems, novels, musics, paintings, cinematographic works, architectural works, sculptures, TV and radio broadcast, and many other things. There is no formal registration process required, but it is existing in order to obtain the protection. Since the copyright protection, as according to the Copyright Act 1957, the copyright protection arises automatically on the creation of the work. Once you create a work, once you write a poem, as per the Copyright Act 1957, the copyright automatically is born. So if you are the copyright owner, what are all the privileges you get? You prohibit or authorize that your work can be copied or reproduced. You can distribute to the public in copy format. This can be performed with your permission in public or broadcasted or used online. It can be translated into other languages. And what are the limitations? Even if your work is protected by copyrights, if anyone is going to use the fair use for personal and educational purpose, then copyright infringement is not said to have occurred. Okay. So in case someone has copied, again like trademark, in case someone has copied the copyrighted material, as you are all students, in any book you take, in the first few pages you can very much see something like the material is copyright protected, and any use or copying without the permission of the author is punishable. So that is the notice anyone, it is given for copyright infringement. And even after that, if someone has copied, in case copyright infringement has occurred, what are all the remedies that the original owner of the copyright can achieve? There are 3 types of remedies available for copyright infringement. First one is civil. So you know that someone has copied, you can go to the court immediately and ask for remedy. And there the court, after hearing your case, if they feel that you have got rights, then they will immediately pass the injunction, and they will ask the person who have copied or who have done the infringement to repay you for the damage, and he'll also order for the delivery of the infringing copies. In case you know the person directly, you can directly file a case against them in the police station. So after which they might get an imprisonment of 6 months to 3 years, similarly a fine of rupees 50,000 to 2 lakhs, and they will also ask to seizure of the infringing copies. So they will ask the authorities to seize the infringing copies and hand over to the original owner. And third one is the administrative infringement remedy. That is, in case you feel that the copyright is done by somebody, a very big company, which you feel that you cannot directly approach them, or you cannot directly go and file any, initiate any civil or criminal proceedings. For those kinds of cases, you will go directly to the Controller General of Copyright, and you'll just tell them that this particular company have copied my material. So they will initiate the administrative procedure through which, if not the action, they will definitely get you the compensation, and they will see through that in case in future for every reproduced material, you get compensation or you get the monetary benefits. Third one is the geographical indication. The geographical indication tag or GI tag is not given to any individual like the trademark or any other intellectual property right. It is given to an association or group of people for their manufacturing or for their making or their skills, and this is generally granted to the products and goods that are originated from a definite geographical territory, which is used to recognize the agricultural, natural, or manufactured goods for having exclusive special characteristics from that particular region. This GI confers a legal protection for specific goods of a region from unauthorized use of the same. The geographic indication also promotes or mainly promotes economic prosperity of producers of goods in a particular geographical territory by boosting the exports. These are the geographic indications. The geographic indication is not given to a particular person. It is generally given to, it is registered by a group of people for the products. For example, we all know Tirupati Laddu, then Dharwad Peda, Darjeeling tea, the Orisa's silk sarees, Orisa's cotton sarees, Pochampalli silk sarees, Salem fabrics, Kanchipuram silk sarees, the Aranmulla mirror of Kerala, Mysore silk, Solapur bed sheets. So all these things are given to the association or group of farmers of that particular area so that the name cannot be copied. And these are the geographic indications that are granted in Tamil Nadu. The Madurai Malli, Kandangi Sari, Tanjavur Veena, and Sirmalai Banana, and Kovai Kora Cotton, Arani Cotton, the bronze idols from Swami Malai near Kumbakonam. So all these things, and even the stone sculptures of Mahabalipuram are also, they have also given the geography indication. So these names, you cannot use it anywhere. Madurai Malli can be sold only in Madurai. You cannot call a Malli or Jasmine which is produced or which is available in Chennai as Madurai Malli. Similarly, this sari, the similar sari can be weaved anywhere, but they cannot call this as Kandangi sari. It should be called by that particular place only. Even the silk also, we have silks of many places. You have Banaras silk, you have Kanchipuram silk, you have Tribhuvanam silk, but the style and designs of Kanchipuram silk are unique. So you cannot call a sari that is weaved in Banaras as Kanchipuram sari. You have to call Kanchipuram silk sari that the products that are weaved only in Kanchipuram only. So why this geographic indication in fact is existing? This is mainly to promote the economic prosperity or the exports of a particular region or the farmers. Next is the plant varieties and farmers' rights. And the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act 2001 is the act that provides the establishment of an effective system for protection of new varieties and the rights of farmers and plant breeders, and mainly to encourage them to develop new varieties so that to feed the population. And to be eligible for plant diversity protection, diversity must be novel, distinct, and this should possess essential characteristics under the Plant Protection Act 2001. And this act, why did we enact this act? This is because of India's obligation which arose from Article 27(3)(b) of the TRIPS Agreement of 2001. And by this, what a plant breeder will get? He will be given a license or special rights to do the following in relation to different types of promotional materials, like he can produce and reproduce the new variety. Nobody other than him can produce. Then he can offer it for sale. He can sell the material. He can export the material. And also he can hold stock of the particular goods. Next one is industrial designs. Industrial designs refers to the right granted in many countries to protect the original ornamental and aesthetic feature of a product that results from design activity. This industrial design is similar to patent, but the patent is something which is given for the working protocol or the principle behind the working, whereas industrial design is only for the aesthetic feature, how a product looks. That is protected by industrial designs. How a product works, that is protected by patent. And this industrial designs allows the owner to exclude others from making, importing, selling, hiring, or offering the articles for sale in which the said design which is protected is embodied. And this designs, again, the registration for process for designs is, once your application is ready, the architectural diagram is ready, you go and file the application. It will be examined. Actually, the process is very similar. I mean, very simple. They'll check for any similarity. In case they don't have any similarity, they will immediately register that and go for publication. In case there are any objections, then it will be notified to the applicant, and he will be asked to submit more documents. And if he is able to submit, it will be accepted for registration, or else it will be refused. And the owner or the other party can anytime go for appeal. Finally, patent. So since this webinar is organized by a science department, I would like to stress, or I would like to highlight more importance on patents, because the patents is directly involved with the science and innovation. I hope many of you know or would have heard about the patents. A patent is an intellectual property right. In fact, one of the very important intellectual property right that is granted to an inventor by any country's government, and it is usually for 20 years. It is a territorial right. For example, it is country specific. There is no patent called international patent. Maybe we can say that when Dr. Sultan Mohideen sir introduced me, he said, I've got one international patent and 3 national patents. That means I filed one Australian patent. It can be called as an international patent, but as such, it should be called as an Australian patent, US patent, China patent. There is no process, there is no term called international patent which you can file. But in case if you want to file your invention, you want to protect your invention in some other countries, yes, you can do that through two process. Either you can approach someone there and ask them to apply on your behalf, or from your country of residence, you can apply to that country using a term called PCT, that is Patent Cooperation Treaty. You can apply through PCT application, and you can get the protection. And this patent gives the owner the exclusive monopoly right to prevent others from making, using, importing, or selling the invention without your permission. And this patent is treated as a very valuable property, since this can be inherited. A father can give his patent, in case before the expiry. Usually the patent is for 20 years. Before the expiry, the owner can give it or can gift it, he can sell it, or he can give it on to give to others on license. In case the owner dies, the rights will be directly inherited to his legal heirs till the 20 years period gets over. And how this concept of patent came to India? In India, the first patent law was introduced in England when we were under the British rule. The first patent law was introduced in 1856 by the British. Then in 1911, the act named Indian Patents and Designs Act, the Act 2 of 1911, was passed in the British Parliament, but to govern the IP, patents within India, and this was exclusive only for product and not process. Earlier, only the product can be patented, but now even the process can be patented. Then post-independence, once we got independence, and an exclusive committee was formed to give rules and regulations for patents in India. And after many round of deliberations, the existing Patent Act of 1970 was enacted. And in 1995, India joined the World Trade Organization TRIPS, that is the trade-related intellectual properties. As per that, the Indian Patent Act 1970 was amended in order to suit the international expectations. So in compliance with the international agreements, mainly TRIPS, the Indian Patent Act was amended. The Indian Patent Act 1970 was amended in 1972, 1999, 2003, 2005, and 2015. So these amendments have paved way for the protection of various forms of intellectual property rights, and the Indian Patent Act and its subsequent amendments also clearly earmark or specifies the invention into two main categories: patentable invention and non-patentable inventions. Now you'll ask me a question. A patent is you told patent is a right which we get through our intellectual, creativity. What is the difference between, or what's the new concept called non-patentable invention? Any invention which an inventor creates can be used, but can it be patented under the Indian Patent Act 1970? The question is yes, if it fulfills certain criteria, and no, if it falls under certain criteria. Let's see what are those. To qualify for patent protection, the invention should fulfill. If you've got an invention, if you say you have invented something, can it be patented? It can be patented if it fulfills these four steps: novelty, inventive step, industrial applicability or utility, and patentable subject matter. So novelty means, you all know, it should be new. Nobody else should know that. Inventive step means even if it is not known to anyone, it should have some inventive step. It should not already existing in nature or elsewhere. You should have done something, some kind of human intervention should be there, and that should be your interventions. Then whatever invention you invent, it should have industrial applicability, because finally the patent is sold to a company, you get money. If it cannot be exploited industrially, then there is no use of filing a patent. So it should have industrial applicability. And last is patentable subject matter, that is, it should not fall under the non-patentable criteria. So let's see now what are the non-patentable criteria. The non-patentable inventions are any invention, regardless of satisfying the novelty, utility, and non-obviousness test. Even I told you the four. Even if some invention fulfills all the first three criteria, if it falls within any criteria under the section 3 and 4 of the Indian Patent Act 1970, then the patent will not be granted. The section 3 and section 4 of the Indian Patent Act very clearly earmarks what are non-patentable inventions. So if you invent something and if you find it falls under these two sections, then there is no use of filing the patent. Even if you file, it will be rejected in the first stage itself. Let's see what are all those conditions. Section 3 is again subdivided into many sections, many subtypes like A, B, C, D, E, F, E, G. So section 3A says frivolous inventions cannot be patented. That is, an invention that is frivolous or claims anything obviously contrary to the well-established fact, then it cannot be patented. For example, if you invent a machine which gives more than 100% performance, or a perpetual machine that does not stop once started, these kind of inventions that are contrary to the well-established fact, scientific facts, cannot be patented. Section 3B tells inventions that are contrary to law and mortality or injurious to public health cannot be patented. Example, the oncomouse, the genetically modified mouse to develop cancer for the purpose of medical research in cancer treatment, is not patentable, because this, if this is protected, then the technology will pass on to, in case if it pass on to some dangerous people, then cancer can be transmitted to the public. So any invention that relates against to the law of mortality or injurious to public health cannot be patented. In section 3C says mere discovery of scientific principle or formulation of an abstract theory or discovery of a living thing or non-living substance occurring in nature already is not patentable. Section 3D tells mere discovery of a new form of known substance. There is an already existing substance. If you find a new use for the substance, maybe it is a good invention, maybe you can earn money, but it cannot be patented. For example, new use of aspirin. We all know aspirin is medicine which is used for heart ailments. But if you find a new use for aspirin, then it cannot be patented because aspirin is already known to us. Similarly, we all know neem. Neem is a very good antiseptic, antibacterial, etc. But if you find a new use for neem, maybe you can publish your paper, but it cannot be patented. However, chemical modification, isomers, complexes, combinations and derivatives of these known substances with enhanced efficacy are patentable. You have to isolate a compound from the neem and you have to do some chemical modification like adenylation, methylation. You add benzene, you remove benzene. So some kind of chemical modification if you do a not already existing natural compound and prove that the modified compound has a very high enhanced efficacy, then it is patentable. Then section 3E tells a substance obtained by mere admixture. Just by mixing two compounds together, you get a very good result. Again, maybe it could be used for your business, but it cannot be patented. For example, an admixture resulting in synergistic properties is not considered as an admixture. For example, soap, detergent, lubricant. You just change the composition of an already existing compounds. You get a very good result, but whether it will be patented or not, it will be not patented. Then section 3F, mere arrangement or rearrangement of known devices are not patentable. For example, an umbrella fitted with a fan or a cap fitted with a torch. Definitely these inventions are useful, but it cannot be patented because fan and umbrella was already existing. Similarly, torch and cap was already existing. You have just arranged or rearranged them into a new product. It is a new product, but it cannot be given patent protection. Then method of agriculture or horticulture is not patented. Similarly, section 3I says any process of medicinal, surgical, curative, prophylactic, diagnostic, therapeutic or other treatment of human being are not patented. Section 3J claims plants and animals in whole or any part thereof other than microorganisms, but including seeds, varieties, species or essentially biological process are not patentable. Since these are not inventions, it is a already existing natural things. Similarly, example like clones, if you have created a clone of an animal, it is not patentable. Similarly, if you breed a new variety of plants, it is not patentable because the new varieties are protected under plant breeders' right and not under patent. Similarly, literary, artistic, dramatic, musical works are not patentable because this will come under Copyright Act protection. And a mere scheme or a rule or a method of performing mental act or method of playing a game are not patentable. For example, you have devised how to solve a crossword or a puzzle. You have devised some shortcuts to play chess. You can use those to win a person, but whether you can apply patent for that scheme, no, you cannot apply. You cannot get it. And presentation of information in any manner by method, by spoken words, display diagrams or symbols are not protected under patent. These diagrams, display, symbols can be protected under Trademark Act, but not under Patent Act. Similarly, topography of integrated circuits are not patentable because you can seek only protection under the Semiconductor Integrated Circuit Layout Designs Act, not through patent. And last, Section 3P tells an invention which is in effect of traditional knowledge or which is an aggregation or duplication of known properties are not patentable. They can be protected under TDK, that is Traditional Knowledge Database. And Section 4, it is not having any subclasses, but the general Section 4 excludes all inventions relating to atomic energy. If you have found some inventions in which you have used atomic energy or it is producing some atomic energy, any inventions relating to atomic energy will not be given patent protection for some interest of nation. Right. So you have got some invention, you have checked, your invention did not fall under any of the above mentioned, previously mentioned category, and it is falling under, it is fulfilling the 4 conditions of novelty, non-obviousness, industrial utility, and it is not coming under the patentable subject matter. Then you can go for filing a patent. So you go file the patent, and the initial patent application process is of 2 types. One is called provisional application, another one is called complete application. In case you have devised or you have filled the entire process, you are sure of filing, you can go for the complete application. In case you feel there are some additions to be done, some improvisations to be done, but you wanted to file just because you are very much afraid of your competitors, then you can go file a provisional patent. Within 1 year, you can submit the complete application with the improvised scheme. Whatever it may be, provisional application or complete application, once you file, they will allot a application number to you. The Controller General of Patents, Designs, Trademarks will allot a application number, and once it is allotted, your application will be subject to publication. And this publication, from the time of application to the filing, publication, it may take normally 18 months. But in case you want an early publication, you should pay a fees of 1,500, with which you can go for the early publication. And then once it is published, you have to request, you as an applicant, you have to request for the examination of your application. And after your request, the examination report will be, your application will be examined thoroughly, and it will be the first examination report called FER will be issued for third party representation. So it will be, the Controller General will ask for objections of all kinds. So and so person has claimed that this invention is his own invention. In case anyone have any objections regarding that invention, can come and object. And the time is given is 12 months. In case after the 12 months, your application have not received any objections, that means it is true, they will grant the patent. In case there are any objections, then the Controller of Examination will decide whether to refuse or to give a show cause hearing to both the parties, both the person who have given the objection and the owner or the inventor. And his decision is final. His decision, whatever it may be, like refusal or acceptance, the other bereaved party can go for appeal to the appellate board, and the appellate board again will go for a thorough investigation, and after that they will issue orders for either revocation of patent. Since it is granted, they might go for a revocation of patent. Revocation means removal of patent, or they might ask to change the patent. So these are the area where the other party has issue, so you change it, they will say. Or if the other party who have objected has no strong evidences, then they might dismiss the appeal. Okay, so this is how you file patent in India. Now you want to file. Now you have devised something, some invention which might have, other countries' interest also. So you want to file. You want to protect your invention outside India. This is mainly because many companies, startups operating from India cater to foreign markets, especially USA. Hence, such companies are keen on filing international patent outside India. So, such companies, startups generally contemplate the adopting following options. As I told in the first slide of patents, you should file something called PCT application. That is called Patent Cooperation Treaty. There is a patent cooperation treaty to which many countries are party. They have signed and they have agreed that they will follow the PCT rules. So you can file applications in foreign countries without filing in India, or you can file patent application in India and soon after you can go for filing in the foreign countries. Either option you can go. And this is the Patent Cooperation Treaty. This is an agreement which helps to simplify the process of filing patent applications in several foreign countries, and this is has been administered or governed by the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. And as on March 2016, the WIPO recorded a total of 148 states, 148 countries are members of the PCT. So this has two phases, national phase and international phase. That's what I told. National phases mean first you file in India, then you go for abroad. International phases, if you feel there is more, your invention is more prone to more attack from abroad, first you file the international application, then you come for the national application. And these are the this is the website of our Indian government's Intellectual Property India website. This is a very interactive and very useful website. For whomever is interested in IP, they can go for this particular website and get their doubts clarified. Okay. Now, since we have more science students here, I would like to just throw more little light on the scopes and job opportunities for related to IPR for science students. Sir, can I have 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
With pleasure.
Thank you, sir. So, as a person who's related to IPR for last 6-7 years, I would definitely say IPR is a recession-proof career. And economic experts around the globe expect global recession to hit us soon. You need to be very careful. As students, you need to be very careful about the career choices you make. Is IP or intellectual property a good career choice in the current global or country-specific economy? If you ask me, yes, it is. Because invention and innovations are part of human development. We evolve through innovations. The inventions which our grandfather used was very much upgraded for our father, and now we use much more innovative products. So innovation and invention are part of human development, and therefore intellectual property experts who deal with innovation and inventions will always be needed to protect the ideas and ownership of the inventions. And the general perception about an IPR professional job is that they either register trademarks, patents, or handle IP litigations. You might feel it is monotonous and boring, but in reality it is not. The IP career is not only to register trademark, register patent, or register any of the intellectual properties and to handle the litigation. No. In reality, if you join a good firm or a big workhouse as an in-house trainee with a good portfolio with related to IP, there are virtually unlimited opportunity. And once you start working in this field, you may consider appearing for something called patent agent exam. And this patent agent exam is only for science and technology students. I mean, maybe science, engineering, and technology students. And commerce or other background students cannot appear for this patent agent exam. And if you clear this patent agent exam, you can set up your own IP firm, or or you can join many of the well-known IP firms. And to improve your career, to prune your job skills, you can do some certification courses offered by the WIPO, India and World Intellectual Property Organization. Many of the courses are free. Many of the very valuable courses are free, and there are some courses which you need to pay. But again, the amount is very meager. But I would suggest you to go for free courses, free certification courses for WIPO. In case if you feel after finishing this graduation, I don't want to go for my family cannot support me for PG research, or I don't want to go to a BPO job, then IP job is far better. And in case you want to go for the Indian Patent Agent examination, or if you want to become a registered Indian Patent Agent, what you have to do or what all about. A person who's qualified, who's an Indian Patent Agent. I don't know how many of you would have heard about this Indian Patent Agent before, but for those who don't know, I'm telling this. A person who's qualified to prosecute patents, that is, he can draft, he can file the patent application on behalf of the owner. Then, given the fact that drafting of patent requires specific technical as well as legal knowledge, only a person who's qualified in both technical and legal domains will be able to fulfill the obligations of patent prosecution. So in India, a patent can be prosecuted through the registered Indian Patent Agent, and Section 126 of the Indian Patents Act 1970 stresses or clears the qualification of becoming a patent agent. So these are the statutory requirements for becoming a patent agent. You should be a citizen of India who have completed the age of 21 years. So by the time you finish your degree, you'll be 20. So for 1 year, if you prepare, when you turn 21, you can apply for the patent agent exam. You should have obtained a degree in science, engineering, or technology from any university established under law for the time being in force in the territory of India. And you should have passed the qualifying Indian Patent Agent exam prescribed for the purpose. So this Patent Agent exam is conducted by the Controller General of Patents under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Passing this exam is a must in order to qualify or register with Indian Patent Office as a registered patent agent. The structure of the exam will be paper 1. It will deal with Patent Act and rules. You should be thorough with the Indian Patent Act 1970. Paper 2 is drafting and interpretation of patent specification. So they might give you some ideas and they will ask you to draft a patent application, and how you interpret the specification they will check. And finally, a viva voce examination will be there, like an interview. So a candidate should get minimum 50 in all 3 papers, and total should be 180 and above. So once you clear the patent agent exam, you become a registered Indian patent agent. So what privileges you will get? As stated by the Indian Patent Act 1970, only registered patent agent is qualified for patent prosecution, and according to Section 127, a patent agent is entitled to practice before the controller, is entitled to prepare all documents, transact all business, and discharge such other functions as may be prescribed in connection with any proceedings before the controller under this act for patent prosecution. So what are the advantages of becoming a patent agent? You are certified by the Indian Patent Office, that is the Government of India. And it is an added qualification, and your name will be displayed in the Indian Patent Office website. You can work as an independent consultant or work in any MNCs, law firms, IP companies for patent filing, drafting, and working in coordination with the Indian Patent Office. In case you are not interested in the patent agent exam, what are all the other portfolios for an IP professional? One is patent legal process outsourcing, LPOs. I still remember Sultan Moideen sir, when he took class for us, he introduced the term KPO. knowledge process outsourcing. He was telling us that time BPO was very famous. So he was telling us something is going to come like knowledge process outsourcing, KPO. So you should all be, strong in that. Similarly, this LPO concept is coming now, patent legal process outsourcing. That is, as the cost of preparing, filing, prosecuting, maintaining patents have become extremely high in the Western world. Though the patent laws are governed by the respective countries, the specification and the process how you do is similar. So the companies in the West are now approaching several LPOs in India, since the salaries and other things are very high there. So in case you enter into this LPO, you have very good opportunity of working with high salary and to work for companies like, Fortune 500 companies. You can become, if you don't want to go to the patent office and prosecute, you can still be with a company, with a firm, IP firm. You can become a patent drafting specialist who only draft patent specifications. Then patent analyst. During the companies merger, two companies, one company is sold by sold and the same company is bought by some other company. They value the assets of the company. That time the IP related to a particular company is valued. So this is done by the patent analyst. So what was their patent, or what is their patent? What is the value of the patent? So the company, the seller will claim that this company has this much. That is whether the claim is true or false. That is done by the patent analyst. Similarly, prior art experts. I told you, if you are not sure about the inventions, you go for something called search. So that search is called prior art. So these prior art experts will help the, giving advice to the company, telling that whether the inventions will be affected with the prior art, or you can still go ahead. So the prior art experts is again a big portfolio in any IP firm. And finally, India and the entire world now is waking up to the potential of intellectual property, and a career in intellectual property is now very sought after. With India becoming the hub of startups, Make in India, Skill India, the R&D centers, as well as big potential markets for products of MNCs, a career option in patents cannot be and should not be ignored by you students. And these are the top institutes in India offering IP-related courses. The Academy of Intellectual Property sites Mumbai, Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad, IGNOU offers a PG diploma in IPR, NIIPM, Nagpur, Rajiv Gandhi Institute, they offer very good, very much, more number of courses, short-term trainings related to IPR. And the Tamil Nadu Dr. La Ambedkar Law University is also offering a PG diploma in intellectual property law. If you're interested, you can go to these websites and enroll in some small courses. If not a PG diploma, a certificate course of 3 months will also help you to start a career in IP. So finally, I would like to thank the management, principal, head and faculty members of the PG and Research Department of Zoology, the New College Autonomous Chennai, for giving me this opportunity. I also would like to thank the respected General Secretary, Correspondent, Sir, respected Principal Sir, Vice Principal Madam, and the convener of IPR Cell of Guru Nanak College for always motivating me in all my academic endeavors. And last but not the least, the participants, you, for having listened to my talk. Now I'll be more happy if I can answer some of your questions.
Participants, if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask your doubts. Even you can just raise your question in the chat box. So one student have asked, his name is Vikram Raj from Biotechnology. What about standard essential patents?
Standard essential patents. These are patents that are required in order to start a company. For example, if you need to start a company, you need to have some essential patents for for receiving funds, for example, from the sponsoring agents. In case you want to apply like through BioNest or BIRAC, they they want to invest only after knowing that you are worth of investing. For that, they need this. They might ask you for a report on the standard essential patents.
Any other questions?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
This is Zoeb Mohammed from Department of Geology, Assistant Professor. I'd like to ask one small question, sir. This late patent, you said it exists for 20 years.
Yes.
So, is it renewable or
No.
what is the period of?
Patent is not renewable, sir. Once 20 years, once the term is over, the patents will come to the public domain. Because why they are giving you the privileges of having 20 years, that you have invested your time, money for so long in order to invent a particular invention. For that, they give you the privilege of using and prohibiting others for 20 years. But if they allow that even after 20 years, that is beyond a certain period of time, then you will only have the monopoly and the benefits will not reach the public. So they have given, most of the countries agreed, and they have given that for 20 years the monopoly right is given, and after 20 years it will automatically come to the public domain.
Thank you, sir. Sir, and just one more small question, sir.
Yes.
For the hybrid seeds, will they be coming under hybrid seeds?
That
If
will not be
somebody-
coming under a patent. It will come under the Protection of Plant Breeders' Rights and Plant Varieties Act.
Because it is a type of innovation, right, sir?
That's what you can protect your innovation, not through patent, but you can protect through the PBR, Plant Breeders' Right and the Protection of Plant Varieties. Through that act, you can protect that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, we have one more question. So Radha Shakar from second MSc Zoology, he asked like why India has less patent when compared to other countries.
My direct answer is people don't have awareness. Frankly speaking, patent is existing from 1800s, but the Indian Patent Act was formulated in 1970. But even now, the awareness towards patent and protection are not among people. So only if we have awareness, we'll have more patents.
Dr. Mahendra Kumar, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Before that, I would like to compliment you and appreciate your very calm, concise, clear, as well as very informative talk.
Thank you, sir.
And one very big take-home message which I felt as a faculty member was your last few slides about the job opportunities, employment opportunities for the students. The students have a wrong impression that life sciences, there are not much of opportunities for them.
Yes, sir.
And you have made it clear that even if student is not interested in going in for higher studies and so on, or BPOs, KPOs and all that, he could also make a career in patents.
Yes, sir.
And that brings to another thing. We would like to maybe have you in future to also conduct a workshop which would benefit our students as well as faculty members on how to file for patents. Of course, you have spoken about that today, but maybe in a more detailed manner, because you have I think you have filed 4 patents.
Yes, sir. I have filed
Indian
4
as well as Australian patent. And we would like to know what are the important steps, etc., that we need to follow when we try to file a patent.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir.
And my actual question was, see, in the current pandemic, when people are facing a lot of issues because of COVID-19, is it fair from the socio, medical and economic point of view to have IPR or patents on COVID-19 drugs as well as the vaccines that are being used? What is your take on that?
Yes, sir. Actually, since this one, I wanted to be this to be a very general talk. I didn't go to that. There is something called compulsory licensing. So that is again a part of patents. For example, as you told, in any emergency, as the case may be, a pandemic or a war situation, in case the government feels that a particular invention is very much essential, they might revoke the patent, and for 3 years the government we can give the technology to anybody, and that's how they did for Covishield and Covaxin, the present COVID medicines. That's why we could produce more vaccines to be given to the public. So the concept of compulsory licensing I did not include in today's slide, since I wanted it to be a very general thing. It is there, sir. The concept of compulsory licensing is there, through which the government, the Controller General, can issue a notice to the particular owner telling that your invention is very much necessary for the nation. So hence we are revoking it for 3 years. For those 3 years, it can be given to anybody can produce. He cannot go. For that, in return, they will give a compensation. But once situation becomes normal, the actual period of protection starts for the owner.
Thank you. It's a very clear clarification. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, sir. Because as asked by Zia sir, this 20 years, till 20 years, it is not like you cannot control. You can control anyone from copying. They can copy, but you can ask for the compensation. You can go for the protection. But after 20 years, if they are doing, you cannot stop them. That is the actual thing. And in the process of compulsory licensing, till 3 years, the Controller General can, ask others to use your technology. But after that, they cannot use that anymore. And Vikram Raj has asked, will it be an anti-competitive act if the license, patent, sub-license, a patent which he got from the owner? Yes. See, if I'm selling my patent, after that I cannot have any hold on that. But in case if I'm trying to give license to others, if I'm going to authorize, then I'll be having an agreement with the person. So in that agreement, all the terms and conditions will be clearly mentioned. And if that person who's getting the license, if he breaches, then again I can sue. If he's going to use my patent for purpose other than mentioned in the agreements between we both, then I can sue him. Sir, SM sir, you wanted to ask something?
First, let me congratulate Dr. Mahendra Kumar for his excellent presentation.
Thank you, sir.
I have only one question. I have gone through your CV, Mahendra Kumar.
Yes, sir.
In that, you have submitted the DNA.
Yes, sir.
Right? The DNA sequence to National Center for Biotechnology Information under GenBank.
Yes, sir.
So the question is whether you can apply patent for filing the DNA sequence.
No, sir. Actually, I want to tell this also, but since you have asked, I think that will be a question to your question. Many people have a doubt whether to publish before or publishing and filing a patent. They have many questions or many doubts. Patent requires novelty, and when you publish something, your work loses its novelty. That means many people come to know that. So even if you want to publish something, you feel that the same work can be patented also, it is better to go for filing the patent, and you can publish after the patent. For publishing, they will not ask whether you have submitted to patent or not. If it is new and if it is original, they will publish. But if you're going to file a patent, they will ask whether you have published this work. If you say yes, they will reject. If you say no, then they will start the process, and if they come to know that you have published it before, again they will cancel your application. So it's better if you feel you can patent something, sir. And with related to GenBank submissions, since it is involved with living organisms, we cannot go for filing, sir. Filing patent.
Okay, thank you, Mahendra Kumar.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation on IPR as well as various courses offered by different institutions with respect to IPR. So you have explained clearly about patents, copyrights, even about geographical indications, trademarks, industrial design, as well as trade secrets, which are the most common forms of the IPR. So then you have also highlighted about the prerequisite for better identification, planning, thereby protecting the invention or the creativity, whatever it may be, and also about the non-patentable products too. And at the end, you have also detailed about the patent agent exam, which would be of a great help for our students, those who wish to take up their job opportunities soon after completion of their graduation. So thank you so much, sir. Now I
Thank you,
request
sir.
Dr. Ibrahim Naveed sir, Associate Professor of Zoology, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, respected head of the department, dear colleagues, and Professor Mahendra Kumar. I'm really happy to be here to propose the vote of thanks for this very scholarly session.
Thank you so much, sir.
I'd like to start by reciting a verse of the Holy Quran which says, that is, Wala in shakartum wala azidannakum. The Almighty says that if you are grateful to me, I'll increase my blessings. So, vote of thanks is not only a ritual, but it is a duty imposed on humanity by the Almighty itself. So, we should be grateful. And there is also a saying of Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He says that God is not in need of thanks of a person who does not thank the people through whom he has blessed his blessings. So, in that way, today we are blessed by the Almighty with your lecture. So you have been so scholarly and so clear and vivid in presenting your lecture to our students. You have given an overall view of the what is IPR, and you have also explained to them about the opportunities. So more than me, our head of the department has complimented you, which is more important, isn't it? Student must know why this IPR is there. Why should we protect, isn't it? Because today copying has been very common, cut, copy, paste, isn't it? So yeah,
Yes, sir.
anywhere you go, plagiarism and all these activities are there, and such things. And you are heading, I think, this IPR cell in your college. We are really happy to know that one of our alumni is there in Guru Nanak College. We are really grateful to you. We are very happy to listen to you, and we hope that our students will emulate your example, and they'll grow far in life. And also, I'm very happy to know that you are occupying various other positions and you are developing yourself. I wish very soon you also complete your doctorate, isn't it? I wish that, and you are
I finished, sir.
finished. No,
Yeah, I
sorry.
finished, sir.
I saw your LinkedIn, and there where you are not mentioned, I think something. So
Oh, okay. Sorry.
think. So anyhow, very congratulations, Dr. Mahendra Kumar. Wish you more success in life. Now it's our duty to thank our management who are so encouraging in organizing such lectures. Our principal who is so humble and always encouraging us. Our vice principals and the IQAC director who has come out with lot of programs and schedule to, I think, to motivate us to conduct such examinations. We are very grateful to all the participants and our colleagues particularly, and Dr. Sultan Mohiddin, who is organizing this session, Dr. Azmatullah, who is taking the more efforts in campaigning and other things, and all the students who have been participated in this program and who have been benefited by this lecture. We thank all our colleagues and particularly all our students and non-teaching staff and every one of us who has made this program a grand success. So with these few words, I'm really happy to be a part of this online session. I think this department has organized, taken a great lead in organizing such sessions, and I think that from here on we will be continuing many more sessions. I think we hope that we will also take a similar program offline to our students, and we will also be happy to invite you to our college with our head of the department. Again, we will see that more programs are conducted with your more scholarliness. So I thank each and every one of you from the depth of my heart for making this program a great grand success. Thank you one and all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity
Thank you.
to come back to my mother institution.
Nice. We'll be very happy to see you there.
Yes, sir.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dear participant, I have shared the feedback link in the chat box. Kindly fill it up to receive your e-certificate of participation.
So may I leave, sir?
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Astra sir. Thank you, SM sir. Thank you, Naveed sir. And
Thank you.
thanks, Hyderali sir. I'm very happy to see you all after a decade.
Nice.
Sir, can I end this meeting, sir?
Please kindly